Baron and I, we know each other for about 3 years now. We've often actually come on the camera and spoken, but there's been a gap for about 1.5 years. We're speaking after a long time. Baron, hi, what's up? Why don't you I'm sure I didn't do a great job introducing you, so just maybe you talk about yourself a little.
Hi, Frames. You did a great job introducing me. Actually, I think we might have known each other more than 3 years now.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's actually closer to 5. Um, it might have been 2019 or 2020.
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a long time. Time flies, of course. Those were the COVID days. I'm sure we all remember that. But yeah, my name is Baron. I have a small channel called Photography Discourse. I actually haven't posted in a couple of years. I've been very busy. Initially, my point in posting at Photography Discourse was kind of to balance out some of the rhetoric that was the anti-Nikon rhetoric at the time.
Yeah.
I got sick of hearing it because a lot of it wasn't true, and I knew that from personal experience. So I got on there to kind of give my point of view, and then it's funny because when the whole world woke up to Nikon, all these people are shooting Nikon now and acting like it's something new, which is great. I love that, but it's funny that some of us have been there the whole time. But yes, I started shooting in about 1987. I was shooting at the time with a FE2 Nikon. I had a bunch of old lenses from the 70s that my mom had given me. And I shot with that for about a year, and then it was all stolen out of my car. And went ahead, and I was very into it at the time. So at that point, I went ahead and purchased the F4, which was sort of the precursor to all modern Nikon cameras. The F4 was the first one that had that DSLR look.
Yeah.
It was like the one right after the F3, of course. F3 being sort of the pinnacle of the old style, like FM and FEs. And I had a dark room after that. I had a dark room about 20 years. I did a lot of film photography. I shot also medium format. I had a Pentax 67 and did that for a long time, and used strobe lights back in the days when you had to use big power amps and plug it into the wall. So yeah, I've been doing it for a while. Also have done other things, and this has been both a hobby and a profession throughout my life. It's always been a hobby. Sometimes I do it professionally. When I do professionally, it's mostly events, wedding, that kind of thing. And I just did a shoot. I did a baby shoot the other day, a 9-month baby. And of course, I do portraiture, and I shoot models and things like that.
I'm going to link your Instagram, because your Instagram is really quite impressive. In the description below, so do check it out. And also just search photo. I'll put the link to Photography Discourse YouTube channel as well, so you can check that out. About me, I don't have not even 10% of credential as Baron, or okay, so let's not even try. But I think what I try to bring to you is I can say first-hand experience and authenticity. And I look at myself as someone who's always learning. So as I dabble with different systems, shoot different systems in different conditions, I learn more and more things about equipment and gear and how to use them. And to be honest, when I first bought the Z8, I thought that this is the camera, that I don't have to buy a second camera. If at all, I'll probably buy another Z8. And within about a year, I found something with the Z8 which I realized no one was talking about. And at that point, I thought this maybe something's wrong with my piece. I checked with other people, including Baron, and he didn't find the same problem. And so I stopped talking about it, but I kept facing that problem. We'll talk about what that issue is, because it's a pretty, it's a serious discussion. It's also has to do with Nikon's future camera lineup going forward. But before I talk about what that specific issue about Z8 is, I think we should talk about two other very, very important things as well. First is what we discussed, Baron, was the lens gap in the lens lineup. And I have my opinion on what really stands out. Like, it really stands out and looks very odd right now in the Nikon lens lineup. And I miss a certain kind of lens while shooting. But I'll start with what you think is missing in the lineup.
Well, I just want to say before I start that in reference to frames and his comments about himself, he may not have the length of experience that I have because I'm also much older than him. But I was attracted to Frames' channel back in 2019 or 2020 because I found him to be a very pragmatic and how do you say, evidence-based channel, where he would discuss things based on having tested them and tried them out. So for me, it wasn't speculation as much as it was actually using something in the field and making comparisons. And so I really liked that because he would, to me, I could trust what he was saying, not because of the credit of whether he was someone special or not, but because he was being very scientific about it. So to me, that's a credit to Frames, and I think that is true today. You've tried, I mean, at this point, he's tried more systems than I have, for sure, because I mainly shoot Nikon now. I have shot some Sony and Canons here and there. I know people who own those. Like I've never shot a Fuji, for example. I've actually never used a Fuji. So, I just think that, anyway, I just wanted to say, like, experience is great, but also you don't have to have years of experience to know what is good or bad by just simply trying it yourself.
I think at the same time,
Anyway.
it's intent. I mean, I like Nikon, but I just found that Nikon just works, and which is what I want to tell people, why this works.
Yes.
Yeah.
We both feel that. I mean, Nikon it's very well built, but this isn't about that. I think there'll be other videos we can discuss the merits of Nikon.
Yeah.
I have on my channel from years ago. You can see videos from 2022 and 2023 where I discuss a lot of the merits of Nikon and why I thought they would not only succeed, but begin to thrive and perhaps overtake some of the other brands. I think we've seen now that has happened. So my predictions from 2022 and 2023 have now largely come to fruition. But there were things also I didn't predict at all. Like, I didn't see them buying red. I didn't think that was a complete surprise. And I also wasn't so sure they were going to go into video-centric cameras like the ZR. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually know. I think in my mind, I wasn't sure that would happen. And some other people, like I think Frames even was saying back then he thought that would happen. And guess he was completely right. And not only that, it's turned out to be quite a good product. So, but that part doesn't surprise me. I expect their products to be better and better as they go along, and they have been. Back to what Frames was initially introducing, we were talking about potential gaps in the lens lineup for Nikon. I think I want to preface that by saying this is not a complaint video against Nikon, because I do think that the Nikon lens lineup is actually incredible, given if you consider that it's about 6 years old. What they have out now is just about everything you could possibly need to do whatever you want to do. And not only that, very, very good versions of each of those things, and also more inexpensive versions of many of those things. Mm-hmm. So they aren't. This is not to say that they've done a bad job or something's wrong. It's to the contrary, they've done an extraordinary job, and I'm very happy with the lenses that they've made. That said, of course, just like nobody's perfect, I'm not perfect. Frames isn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nikon hasn't yet fulfilled. I'm sure it's because they haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm sure they know everything that we say and better, but for me, I guess one of the things I would say is shooting events. I was always jealous, I would say, when the RF system came out. The only thing I was ever jealous of on a Canon. And by the way, Canons make great cameras. I don't mean to disparage them or anyone else, but I've had Canons in the past. They're great, but they weren't for me. However, when the RF mount came out, and then soon thereafter they put out that 28-70 f2 zoom, that mid telephoto zoom lens, that was an f2 lens, that did catch my attention, because I was shooting weddings at the time with two camera bodies. I had two Z6IIs. And one had the 35 1.8S lens mounted to it, and the other one had the 85 1.8S lens mounted to it. I was doing the kind of standard 35-85 trading off bodies. Works great, got amazing photos, so there's nothing wrong with it, and it's completely doable, and I did do it. But when I saw that lens, I thought, gee, that this was amazing. I could have one camera and kind of cover that range mostly. And it's not completely, because I do believe that 85 millimeters has a different look than 70. And I think that 85 millimeter has a better look than 70 for many things. So the 28 to 70 maybe isn't the perfect range, but it's a great concept. And I always thought maybe they could make a 35 to 85 f2 and literally just cover that 35 and 85 and everything in between range.
Yeah.
And that might keep the size relatively down, because I know it gets exponentially larger, the lens. I mean, the Canon lens is quite large and heavy. But Sony has recently made the same lens, and theirs is much smaller. So I think technology is moving along, and with Nikon having the Z mount, and which is the best mount for the large throat diameter and the shortest flange distance, giving them many optical options that are not available to other mounts. I figure that they should, of all manufacturers, Nikon should be able to produce something like that, and presumably perhaps with smaller size and weight, just as they're doing smaller or less weight on their new 24 to 70 2.8 version 2 lens. The fact that Canon and Sony have now both made medium telephoto zoom lenses at f2, to me that's a gap. Now, you could argue, I think Nikon could easily say it's not a gap because some other company does something. And I think that that's also very valid. It's just that I think the fact that both other companies are making it indicates that there's a desire for it in the market. And I can tell you, I have a desire for it. I would much rather use a Z-mount native lens than to buy a Mega DAP adapter and buy the Sony version.
Yeah.
I don't like doing that. It's possible, like people have said that, why don't you just buy the Sony? But I was at a camera, I was at a Precision Camera in Austin, Texas, big, nice camera store, very, very big. It's a camera store that still exists, which is nice, and it's got a lot of professional staff, and they have huge events with all the manufacturers. And Sigma was there, and they were showing me their 51.2, and I was marveling at that because it's smaller and lighter. We'll get into that part later, but I remember saying, "Why don't you make it for Nikon?" And well, I don't think Nikon has allowed them to do that. But he says to me, "Oh, but just get the adapter and just buy it, and you can adapt it." And it's true, I could do that. But I still prefer a native lens, and I think for firmware updating and all that, it's still, for me, I prefer a native.
And there's one thing that people do not realize, and I'll talk about that particular f2 zoom idea or gap, how you put it, however you put it. I think there's something else that people don't often realize, is that we all particularly love Nikon, Canon, and Fuji. These brands are known. They have a huge fan base because of their particular color science, and they do look a certain way, and people prefer that look. And you may say it's subjective, you may say I'll match it in post, all those things, you can say all of that. But I can tell you there are a few things you just can't do. I mean, Canon and Nikon look different, and there will be situations when you can't make the Sony look like Canon, can't make the Canon look like Nikon. There will be those situations as well. There will be some other situations where we'll be able to match them. Now, the color sense of a camera depends tremendously on lenses. That's something people don't realize. You put on a Sony lens on Nikon versus you put on a Nikon lens on Nikon, they do look different. Especially Sony lenses have a particular kind of look. I think the way the Sony lenses typically treat red and green is different. There's something to the look, and you can just tell it. And so the important thing for me is to say that when you're going to spend good money on buying a first party Sony lens, for example, and if you're operating the Nikon Z system, if you're paying first party lens money, it's better that you buy your first party lens because the quality standards have to match. The lens will have to stay with you for a long time. The way the ceiling should not get compromised, and of course the color science and autofocus and 10 other things. So I think it just makes sense that Nikon makes it if there is so much talk, so many people buying the Mega DAP adapter, Mega DAP now Pro Plus, the third version of the E to Z 21 adapter. That's out. and that's supposed to be where the sealed this time. So clearly, there's a huge market for it. If you just track the number of Mega F21, like I have bought 2 of those adapters, and I'm going to buy 1, which means that I want to use 3 Sony lenses all at the same time, possibly, or Sony mount lenses. So that tells us that if we just track the number of people or number of units that Mega is selling, we know the market, because someone is buying a lens, and on top of that, that person is spending about $250 to $300 on that adapter. So it just makes sense for Nikon to give us the f2 zoom, and that is, to me, is a very practical large gap. On the other hand, I'll just take a moment to tell you what I think, what when I discussed it with Photography Discourse, what I felt was missing from the lineup, and that to me is a wide prime. And so Nikon has a very expensive wide zoom lens, a very high quality zoom lens, but I do think a smaller and more compact wide prime is important. The widest you can go right now is 20 millimeters, and I don't know anyone who has used the 20 millimeters Nikon 1.8 lens and says, I don't like the lens. Everyone loves that lens, but I think we need a 16 millimeters lens or a 15 millimeters lens. We need something like that, because if you look at all systems right now at this point, if you look at Lumix, if you look at Sony, if you look at Canon, all of them have a wide prime lens. In fact, if you want to buy a 16 1.8, you have to reach out for a Viltrox 16 1.8. Canon has a 16 2.8 Pancake, very nice, small compact lens. Also, they give you a different kind of look altogether, the ultra-wide lenses. I think that's one thing that's really missing in the Nikon lineup. And Nikon is a brand that's known for great wide-angle lenses.
Yes, that's right. And I think you're right. I don't know that the f4 is as missed, because they have, as obviously, as you know, they have the 14 to 24 2.8, and they have the 17 to 28 2.8. So to me, an f4 version would be more for to be inexpensive rather than filling the gap. Although that's a gap in itself, perhaps less expensive lenses, of course. But I think you're right, for just a faster prime, something faster than 2.8, at least 1.8, if not 1.4. And it would have to be 16 millimeters or wider, I think, because we have 20. The 20 1.8S is an incredible lens. I just shot a whole shoot with it about a week ago and forgot how good it was, because I hadn't used it in a long time, because I don't usually shoot that wide for some of the things I was doing, but it looks great. It's such a good lens. It's fantastic. But if you're going to do a prime that's wider than 20, let's make it somewhat wider. So I think 16 at the minimum, if not 15 or 14. So I think that's true. I think that's a good point that you made, and I think I'm guessing that will come. I can't imagine it won't. I also think that they have a gap a little bit at the 28 millimeter mark. A gap it's funny to say a gap, because of course they have many zooms that fit that hit 28 millimeters, many.
Like, I'm shooting this on the Sony 28 f2, and I was looking for an autofocus fast 28 millimeters, and to my surprise, except for Viltrox, which is a much larger lens than this Sony one, there's no other option.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, one of the lenses I really love, there's 2 f-mount lenses. Well, there's 3 that I still have that are Nikon f-mount. I like them all. But the 2 that I really love the 28 1.4E lens. And I really love the 105 1.4E lens. And the other one that I have is the 58 1.4G lens. All of them are really interesting for their own way. The 58 1.4G is kind of it's very much a character lens, and like has a certain look, and I only would use it at certain times. But the other 2 are very, very Z-like. I think they're one of the most modern of the F-mounts, because they're that E line that was kind of at the end of the F-mount run. And I think they must have put technology in, because they're very sharp, and but they're very great lenses. They have great character too. And I think I still shoot with that 28 1.4 often, and there's nothing in Z mount that would be an equivalent. So that's one potential gap. And the 105 also, yes, there's a 105 2.8 macro for Z, but that 1.4 is such a great look. And I would say the only things that match it for the Z mount system are the 85 1.2 and the Plena, the 135 Plena 1.8. I have both of those. They're excellent, but this might lead in, I don't know if this leads into our next topic and if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But if it is, I would say that it's interesting that I have all three of those lenses, and all three of those lenses fit the style of shooting that I do to an extent. And I find that I still use the 105 the most. And the main reason is, it's not that it's necessarily better. I don't think that's the case. I think they're all excellent and they're all of a similar quality.
But they're different.
In some ways,
they look different.
They are different. And in some ways, the Plena is better. In some ways, the Plena has almost no vignetting, and it's got perfect, circular bokeh to the edges, which is incredible. It's a feat of optical engineering. And it's certainly better than the 105 in that respect. The 105 gets cat's eyes in the side and things like that. The 85 also has a little bit of cat's eye, but by f2 it's perfectly round, and it's amazing. But the reason I use the 105 more has to do with the size and the weight. Because it's an f-mount lens, it's shorter than the other two, and it seems to be smaller, and it fits in my bag much easier. And so when I travel, and I do travel a lot between different cities, I find myself, if I'm going to take any one of those lenses, I almost always take the 105. And it's just because I can take the adapter off and it fits easily in the bag. And then I can put the adapter back on when I get there. So that's an interesting point, that I always thought I didn't care about size and weight. I only wanted the best. And that is something I've believed in my life of shooting. And I still do to an extent. But it has occurred to me in more recent times that there is a use case for the smaller and lighter stuff, because if you're not willing to take something with you, then you're not going to use it. And so if it's not with you, you can't use it. So no matter how good it is. So I do think that is something I wonder what Nikon can do in going forward. Because, for example, the 50-1.2S is an incredible lens that I love. I also don't travel with it very much. I find myself taking the 50-1.8S lens, which is fantastic as well, but I take it over the 1.2 because it's simply so much smaller and so much easier to carry. So I know that Nikon has made these longer, when I say longer, I don't mean millimeters, I mean the actual physical length of the lens is longer in many of these cases, like the 50 and the 35-1.2 are very long. They also have virtually no focus breathing, and I suspect that has something to do with it, and that's fantastic, and I don't want them to give that up. So maybe I'm asking for a miracle, because maybe the length is necessary for some of the qualities that they've gotten. But then Sigma made the 50-1.2 smaller, and it seems to not focus breathe either. So I don't know. I just don't know enough about optical engineering, but I would say, if Nikon could work on anything, it would be getting the size and the weight down, but not sacrificing quality. And of course, who wouldn't ask for that? That is nothing, what I'm saying is so ridiculous, because that's what everybody would want. Of course, it's obvious. So it's, again, not very much of a criticism. It's more of a comment, because I don't think, it's certainly not a criticism. If I was talking to their engineers, I'm sure they would give me reasons that I didn't understand initially for why the lenses are the way they are. And if they told me, I'd probably say, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I don't know.
I think which is now actually we unwittingly moved into the second discussion. Before you, of course, jump onto the why you might have clicked on this video. This is about size and weight, but I think it is also about shape. what people don't we don't often use the word shape. I think it matters a lot. I feel that the 35 1.2 is uncannily long, and so is the 50.
Yeah.
The 85 is
Yeah.
interestingly a bit shorter than the 50, both the 50 and the 35. And if you look at the Canon lenses, they are like wider, but they're not as long. So somehow it
Yeah.
feels like you're a bit more comfortable while using it, because when you're shooting 1.2 lenses, you're mentally ready that you can handle a heavy setup. But if you can make it a bit more easy on the shooter to carry it along and just be a little more flexible while that's on your body.
Well, to add to your point about the length, I agree with that, because in the bag, if it after a certain length, you can't sit it this way anymore. You have to sit it this way. And once you sit it this way in the bag, it's taking up many spaces.
Yeah.
Because if I could have 3 lenses in this space, but once I have to do this, it's only 1 lens.
Yeah.
So
that's
the 51.2 is much too long to go like this in the bag, and so is the 35. That's the problem. Like the 70-200 version 1 fits this way in my bag, just barely. It's not extended, of course, but it doesn't have to be extended, and it can fit like this. But as soon as I go and the 105 1.4 lens without the adapter fits like this, but the Plena and the 85 do not.
And interesting, the new 24-72.8, I think, is longer,
right? Yeah. So it wouldn't fit for me. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. I think for where they had to make that, because for video, it's going to balance on the gimbal much better. And it's lighter, I understand, which is nice. So at least they got some of the weight down, and they made a smaller filter diameter, and it's better weather sealing automatically because it's internal. I think that it is a better choice, and the sacrifice of the bag might be worthwhile in that case, because it is a 1 lens to do many things. So if you're going to take up more room in the bag, at least it's with a lens that's very versatile. But in general, I agree. It's the length of the lenses that's more disturbing than the width and the weight.
Yeah,
I agree with that as far as travel goes.
And of course, I'm pretty sure, looking at the 24-72.8, I'm pretty sure that Nikon is working towards a new formula where they could use much faster autofocus motors inside, because somehow the lens elements are smaller but still as good in quality as it has ever been, and therefore they probably have to put in smaller autofocus motors, which will still work better than the previous autofocus motors who had to kind of push heavier, larger elements. So I think it's good to have these choices. I honestly think if you look at the 35 1.4 and the 50 1.4 from Nikon, they did not change the size of the lens, which to their credit was a really good decision. I think they could have potentially added a bit more of those fantastic coatings. They didn't put much coating on those lenses.
Then it would cost more. It would be an S lens, right?
Yeah. I mean, just maybe two more layers of coating. Okay, I mean, take $100 more. But I mean, of course, once you have something, the human mind always wants more. I remember having spoken about the 1.4 about 5 years back, and I said at that point, that, oh, I'll be so happy if they just they don't have to do the best 1.4 ever. They just have to do a middling 1.4. And the reason I was talking about it, because Sony has so many fantastic 1.4 GMs which are still compact. Okay, and therefore I think that, of course, you want to have something like that without the kind of distortion that the Sony lenses have, and that's actually on the front element of the lens. The front element of the lens has to be a little wide, so that there is less distortion. If the front element of the lens is sort of compromised, then you have problems. Anyway, but I think Nikon can identify like a few lenses that are wide angle for video shooting, few lenses that are in the normal range, where the focus is making a light line. For example, Sigma has make, I don't know what that is called, a compact line of lenses. Right now, Viltrox is making the Air series. So I think Nikon can just launch a series that's meant to achieve best quality possible within a certain size. What kind of compromises can they make? We'll have to, I don't know. I don't want to be prescriptive here, but that's the
If you want to
ask.
talk about, if you want to talk about the gap, I mean, they obviously know this, and I'm sure they're doing something, but they put out a 35 and a 50 1.4 very quickly.
Yeah.
And then for a long time now, we've seen nothing. Like, where's the 85 1.4? Where's the 24 1.4?
In
Or a
fact,
28
they
1.4?
have been quite quiet on their lenses front. They haven't really put out a lot of lenses. They did put out a lot of lenses last year. Also, case in point, there's one very interesting thing. We don't realize that Nikon has really small and light, large lenses. Like when you expect Nikon to make really large lenses, the telephoto, super telephoto lenses, those lenses are surprisingly light, and that's where they have really broken new grounds, I think. And what we're talking about here is just bringing that technology in the more normal ranges, which is what most people are shooting with.
I mean, I think it's notable that we didn't mention long lenses at all. I remember when the Z system was young and people were complaining about there was no long lenses. I mean, today the long lens lineup of Nikon is definitively the best in the business.
And it's already been
There's
the
no
best for the
question.
last 2 years. So
Yeah,
they
there's
did
no
it,
question about that.
they did it 2 years back, not now.
Yeah.
To think
Yeah,
about it.
everybody, even the people who didn't shoot Nikon who are in the birding world admit that now. So they've done a great job.
Yeah, you
And-
buy into the Nikon system for lenses, especially if you're a birding guy, wildlife guy. If you want telephoto lenses, it's Nikon. Yeah. So I think now what people are waiting for is this conversation, and I think I hinted at the fact that I was very happy with the Nikon Z8, and I looked at it as the ideal, just the right camera, just the most comprehensive camera almost ever made. I do think now I have come to realize that the Z8 and the Z9's biggest strength is also its biggest weakness, and that is that shutterless sensor. And Baron, when I found something, I contacted you about a year back and I said, hey, I'm seeing this. Are you seeing this? You said, no, I've been shooting with it in all conditions, but you didn't see a problem. Do you want to talk about the problem?
Yeah. So I didn't see the problem, and it's funny. The genesis of this video for the audience to understand is that I spoke to Frames recently, and I said I saw the thing you were telling me about, which is out of the blue because I had never seen this before, and I think what we're talking about is there's a banding problem with the Z8 sensor, Z9 sensor, using under certain conditions using artificial lighting. And the conditions that I understand it to be is mainly very fast, high-speed sync, and also perhaps in video. Frames will speak more to the video, but so what I found, so I was shooting a lot with the Z8. I used strobe lights all the time, and I hadn't seen this problem. So when Frames brought it up, and I've heard it from a few other people, but not much. But I have heard of it. I actually think Z Wade talked about this at one point. I kind of was like, well, I don't know. I believe those guys. I believe them. I don't think they're making it up, but it's not affecting me. So it doesn't matter to me because it doesn't affect me. So recently I did do a shoot, and not the whole shoot, but a couple of very specific images within that shoot, I saw the banding, and I was shocked. I'm like, there's lines in my photo that are not in the actual world. This is actually this is an artifact from the camera. And then I zoomed in and I looked around the frame, and sure enough, it was clearly bands across the entire frame. And so what I think is happening, at least with high-speed sync, I can't speak to the video part of it, but in high-speed sync, it seems that above a certain shutter speed, this starts to emerge. And I never noticed it because I'm generally using high-speed sync to bring down the ambient light in a very bright scenario outside. And so when you do that, I think that you're bringing down the ambient, but there's still a ton of ambient. And I think it fills in the bands so you don't actually see them. So they don't actually matter because if you can't see them, it doesn't matter. But in this very recent shoot, I was shooting in a very dark place and I wanted it to be even darker. I didn't want any of the ambient light to come through. I just wanted the only flash to be the only thing that illuminated the scene. And it was already dim, but not dim enough. So my shutter was high. It was at 1/5000th of a second, even in a dark environment, which means the light itself was the only illumination. And in that shot, it is 100% certain that you can see banding. There is banding in the shot. And I was, just for the audience's knowledge, I was using an Evolve 200 flashpoint strobe, which is essentially an 80, it's not essentially, it is an 8200 Godox, original 8200 Godox. And the shot still looks really good because it's kind of a weird, like spooky kind of shot, and the banding almost, ironically, the banding almost doesn't take away because it's just weird to begin with, so it kind of makes it even weirder. But that's not what you want. It wasn't intentional, obviously. And obviously the other problem is if I wanted to shoot that same shot again with my Z8 and not have banding, I wouldn't be able to do it because I don't have a mechanical shutter. The only way I would be able to do it would be to put on perhaps an ND filter and shoot with a lower shutter speed. But of course, one of the things about high-speed sync that's valuable to me is its ability to adapt quickly in the field. And I'm not screwing filters on and off and doing that kind of stuff. So yes, there's a solution, but it's not a great one. And obviously, if I had a mechanical shutter option, I could just switch to the mechanical shutter and then that would solve the problem. So I think what we're discovering is as incredible as the Z8 is and the technology of the shutter, or excuse me, of the sensor, the extremely fast sensor, which is a wonderful sensor and in every other way has shocked me and delighted me. But now there is a use case I've found that is not the best choice. And if I shoot in a scenario like that going forward, I have no choice but to use my Z7III and put it on manual shutter.
And this is where I'm going to add my experience, which I first faced it not while using a flash, interestingly. And subsequently, I did always, I mean, of course, I faced it while using a flash and, against the sun shooting environment. The first instance when I actually found this was when I was using a video light. Okay? I was using a Godox, I think 300 watt or something like that, 300 watt video light. And initially it looked quite fine, but when I started to edit it, I realized if you want to add a little bit of contrast, the lines start to emerge more and more because its contrast is essentially going to accentuate the difference between light areas and shadow areas, bright areas and shadow areas. So that's how the banding becomes more visible. Interestingly, I checked at that point about a year back, and I did not find much information, much conversation around it. And then I discovered that it is when you go above shutter speed of 800 that you start seeing that banding, even in video light. So it does not depend. It doesn't matter whether you're using a flash or not. If you're using artificial light and going higher than 800 shutter speed in video light and higher than 1250 shutter speed with a proper flash, that's where you're going to start to see this banding. Now, the interesting thing, there are situations where you do not want any ambient light to come in, and in those situations, you're fully dependent on your flash or your artificial lighting. And there may be situations where you actually want high shutter speed because you are doing some sort of action photography, even if you're shooting within studio. Maybe there's movement of the subject, maybe it's a gym, maybe it's something else, maybe it's indoor sports, you know, maybe it's liquid photography, and you need to maintain a shutter speed of at least 2000, and that's where it becomes almost, I think it's almost unavoidable that you're going to see this bending. And what is surprising to me that there's not been enough talk about it, which is, which goes back to our initial conversation on, how we approach this channel. And you could tell us that, hey, you found it about a year back, you're sitting on it, you didn't talk about it. I honestly initially thought I have a faulty Z8 or I was doing something wrong. And and I do one thing wrong. If the color grading of this video is not to your liking, you're going to start writing a lot of comments downstairs, and it doesn't feel good. I'm being honest. So I didn't want to take a risk with something that I was feeling that I found for whatever reason, but no one else seemed to sort of corroborate it or support my findings. But now, having kind of lived with the camera more and more, I realized that this is a problem with the Z8, and this is also a problem with typical shutterless cameras, because there is a particular model that Kodak has launched, I think the V100. I bought that particular flash and it's working fine with the flash. So if you want to not have this problem, you're going to still have this problem if you're shooting in video light and with shutter speeds higher than 800. So imagine you're shooting with video lights, but you want to freeze the action, so your shutter speed is higher than 800. You're going to have problems with banding. At the same time, if you are shooting with flash, if you buy 5 of these flashes, maybe you'll probably find a way to get around it.
I find it interesting. I don't have the V100 flash from Godox. I don't remember what the Flashpoint version's called, but I do want. That is a speed light I probably will ultimately get. It's. I understand it's an excellent speed light and that it's 100 watt seconds, which is amazing for a speed light. It's almost like a mini strobe that you can mount on your camera. I know Ronald Pollard. I don't know if some of the audience might know Ronald. He's a fantastic photographer out of Huntsville, Alabama, and friend as well. And he usually shoots. He was exclusively, in fact, shooting Profoto. Mm-hmm. And he recently bought the V100, and he says he's never been happier. He thinks it's incredible, and it's better than the analogous Profoto.
Its cycle speed is very high.
Yeah, and he said it's just great. And he never mentioned the banding. That's not something he's ever complained about. I don't think he experiences it in the type of photography he does. But according to Frames, because I don't know this either, I've not used this, the Z8 does not have this problem with that particular light. So the good news is it means that this is not just a camera problem, it's also a problem of the old light technology isn't working perfectly with the new sensor technology. So obviously it can be saved ultimately in the future as the light companies begin to make the newer light technology.
More expensive light.
Yeah, yes. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying that if you have a Z8, there might be a time in a year or two from now, or 2 or 3 years from now, that all the lights that are coming out don't do this. So maybe it's not a problem later. I don't know. Like I said, I've never experienced this problem. If you're shooting in a studio, traditional studio shooting is where you shoot like maybe at f5.6 to f8, and you're using strobe. You're eliminating all of the ambient light, mostly through the fact that you're at f8. And so 1/200th of a second is usually enough.
Yeah.
And at 1/200th of a second, you're not even in high-speed sync. It's just regular sync, and there is no problem with the Z8. Let's be clear. Like, I've shot many times in that scenario, and it looks fantastic. There's no problem.
I know a lot of people are going to type what comment if they have not come till this point. Because I said that if you're shooting a high-speed product photography or something, action photography within a studio, when you're depending completely on artificial lighting, you will see this problem, especially with older flashes or with video light. But what I didn't talk about is that actual flashes, you're not actually freezing action with the shutter, you're actually freezing action with the speed of the light. And that may be why people haven't talked about, because in highly professional scenarios, those guys know exactly the speed of the pulse of the flash, so they know how many seconds that flash is on. So if you go higher, even let's say you're shooting, whether the 8200 and 8200 Pro has very good speed, meaning it takes very little time and gives you
The flash duration.
Yes, the flash duration to power output ratio, it's very good. So with the low flash duration, it still gives you very good power output. And eyewitness research.
I think it's true. I don't think a lot of people have this problem, because like I didn't either, because the example of the shot that I have the problem is not the kind of thing I would normally be shooting. It's not normal that I'd be in a dark environment and still need a high shutter speed. That's very unusual. Like, I guess it's just not something that has come up really. And so now that it did and I saw it, I was like, what's this? I was shocked. But actually it's true. You can, if you know about it, you can probably get around it. If I had to do this shot again, this specific shot, I could just use an ND filter and shoot with a lower shutter speed. I could get around it if I had to. Yeah. I think our point is the Z8 is supposed to be the camera that you don't need to get around anything.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
That's the point.
Right. That's the point. So the point is not that we are not here to say the Z8 is a bad camera. Just to be clear to the audience. The Z8 is not a bad camera. The Z8 is an incredible camera. And I would still say, even in spite of this, it's still one of the best cameras in existence today, in my opinion. Yeah. And so something is wrong here, but it's not, I don't think it's a fatal flaw. I don't. And the reason is two reasons. One, it's a very, very, very specific use. And number two, flashes can be made, apparently, and this is the part I'm taking Frames' word for it, but apparently flashes can be made that will not do this, which means it's not a fatal flaw, because it can be fixed in theory. A fatal flaw to me cannot be fixed. If it's fatal, it means it's a problem you cannot solve, right?
Problem is with the video.
Okay, so for video, but maybe video lights will get better too. Maybe the video lights are probably flashing. Who knows?
Yes, they'll have to.
I don't know.
And imagine for expensive and powerful video lights. Imagine a 600 watt light or 300 watt light. They're not very cheap, to be honest, at this point. So if the pulsing, the speed of pulsing of those lights have to go higher than what they're right now, then it's going to be more expensive. But that's only one part. If you are actually shooting a not so well lit situation, videos on the Z8, you're going to see crazy amount of banding. And when I saw this, it looked like a grid all over the frame, and I felt as if these are the micro lens array on the sensor, which does the focusing job on the the face, on sensor face direct focusing.
Well, they talked about that. It's funny, when the Z first came out, people criticized the original Z6, the first version. They said that if you pushed in post, if you pushed it 5+ stops, you would see the bands of the sensor. I remember them saying that back then. And I remember other people saying, well, that might be true, but if you have to push your thing 5 stops, then you don't know how to expose. And that's true too. So I don't know what to say about this
anymore. I think there are situations when you allow for a dynamic range of 6 stops or 8 stops. There are situations when you're working with 3 stops at dynamic range when you need to pull the shadows higher. That's a creative choice.
What we do know is that Canon made the decision on the R5 and the
Go
R5
for a
II
shutter.
to keep a mechanical shutter. And
Yeah.
at the time, we didn't know why. We thought, well, they're just not as advanced. We thought, it seemed like maybe they weren't as advanced as Nikon because Nikon had this special sensor. And that might be true. Nikon sensor still might be better as an electronic sensor. It might be better, but I think
Slightly.
Canon,
Slightly
exactly,
faster.
whatever. Perhaps. I'm just saying that's not the reason why Canon put the mechanical shutter in,
Yeah.
though. They probably put it in because they realized there might be some use cases
Yeah.
where you still would need it.
Yeah.
And I give them credit for that. That's great. On the other hand, I do like the sensor shield that the Z8 and Z9 has, which you can't do if you have a shutter. That shield has made my sensor so much less dirty over the years that it's been very appreciated. And again, I've only had one shoot so far that this banding has affected me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm torn. I do think it's something Nikon should address if they, obviously there's a technological solution. There's got to be even better sensor technology coming that can solve this problem. And at some point it won't matter. You'll be able to have an electronic shutter and not have this problem under any circumstance. I'm sure that is true. And maybe that's part of what the Z9 II will do. I don't know. But this is an issue. I don't think it's a fatal flaw, but I do think it's an issue that should be recognized, because if you're going to shoot in certain situations, you have to take steps to avoid it. And if you can't take a step to avoid it, you should use a different camera, which...
I saw Nikon to kind of do something about that. Those sensor based imprints of those micro lenses on the image. I think on video they should do something about it, because I genuinely feel that the next iteration of the ZR should be the ZR Pro, and they should use the Z8 sensor. It's got tremendous dynamic range, and it can do wonders with the red R3D log and R3D raw files. And I would love to see the Z8 sensor fixed and reused on a video camera. It's got all the signature elements, credentials to be a fantastic video camera, film camera sensor. If they aim for that, they're going to obviously improve the sensor. They're going to, if they aim for that, they're going to obviously end up with a much better sensor, which they can now use for the Z9.
Well, since they own Red, and Red doesn't have this problem, I'm assuming Red cameras don't have this problem.
Do not do autofocus. Red don't do autofocus. And I don't know how dependent autofocus performance is on these micro lens arrays. Which is what I'm a bit... we just don't know enough. So any of you guys know more about it, do write in the comment section. That makes for a very interesting conversations. I think we just don't know more about it. Is there a way to hide the micro lens imprint on the sensor, especially in low light conditions and in some artificial lighting conditions? If you sort of want to avoid that, does that impact autofocus performance? So yeah, that's what I'm very keen and interested to know about. Technically, what's going on is something that I don't know answer to that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of what we talked about, and what we figured out. I do want to say I am extremely excited about Nikon in the present day. Overall, I think they're doing a great job, and I couldn't be happier that I've been a Nikon shooter the whole time, and that I never abandoned ship at the time when everyone was saying they were going out of business, because we all knew that wasn't true. But anyway, some people were afraid and did, and I'm sure they'll come crawling back. Many of them already have. I just think that Nikon is a little more boutique than, I guess that's the way I would put it. It's a little more of a boutique company than a Canon and a Sony. Canon and Sony are very mass produced. And I think Nikon has a little smaller, like, boutique feeling where they can put the extra care. And if you hold a Nikon camera, you know it's a Nikon. It's just got a feel. It's solid. It's solid in a way the others aren't. And this is all bias speaking on my part, of course. And I'm very happy. And as a photographer, I'm very happy with it. I was surprised about this banding, but it's it's such a specific use case. It doesn't affect most of anything I do. And now I know, so if I'm going to do a shoot similar to that, I'm going to use my Z6III with a mechanical shutter, and there's going to be no problem. But it does beg the question, and I think this is the last thing maybe we wanted to hit on, is this whole notion of a Z7 III.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Right?
We're just about to miss it.
Because the Z7 III, it's always been a question, like, what's the point of a Z7 III because of the Z8? And now there is a use case position that you could argue that a great Z7 III, perhaps a high, you were saying perhaps a high megapixel, even higher, perhaps 61.
Can I take this
with a
point?
mechanical shutter?
Can I take this point? I'll tell you.
Yes, please.
I do think that yes, you can. A kind of shooting that I like a lot is to shoot against light, and then light the subject with flash, and then at that point, I don't want to use an ND filter. Why? Because I want to get all the goodness of the natural light. Because no matter how good an ND filter is, it's going to add a cast. What that does is, often if it's got a magenta cast or some other kind of color cast on the file, when you have to edit it later on, it's difficult to get the contrast back. It's difficult to get the separation between colors back. At times that happens. It doesn't happen always, but at times, if you're unlucky, it'll happen that even while edit, you'll find it hard to bring that color separation back, that the real distinctness, the intertonal richness of colors. That's very long for it. That's why we spend money for a better lens, a better sensor, better camera.
So how does the Z7 III solve the problem?
Because I can just simply use higher shutter speed and avoid the ND filter, and the shutter is going to be
the reason is because you would have a mechanical shutter.
I'm going to have a mechanical shutter. Yeah, once I have the mechanical shutter, then I don't have to depend on the ND filter. And I don't know the Z7 III needs to be expensive large camera. They can use probably the Z6 III body or even the Z5 II body. I think a lot of people will find with that, because what you're looking at is a higher megapixel, extremely rich, extremely powerful, fantastic sensor that's also got a mechanical shutter. But the price of the Z7 III should not be, in my view, more than $2,500 because we're not looking to have tremendous video out of it. We're just going to have just about okay video out of it. That camera should be a dedicated photography camera. And I think when people say that just give me what I need for photo, I think when people say just give me what I need for photography, what people mean is don't make my camera cost more by adding things to my photo camera. I'm not going to use that, and I'm paying for that. And so I think they don't need to add 10 more things if they can give us a very good, well-packaged $2,500 Z7 III. It's going to be great.
Basically, the Z7 III could just basically be the Z5 II, but with a 61 megapixel sensor.
Yeah. Either the A7
basically, right?
5. I think either the A7R5 sensor or something either Nikon is working on. It can be a 61 or 70 megapixel. It should be a high megapixel sensor, a minimum of 46, maximum 65, 66 megapixel sensor. Yeah.
But it's basically the Z5 II camera, except with a high megapixel.
Yeah, because I really like that body. If you look at the Z5 II, you don't.
Well, what I mean by that is like the Z5 II has good video, but that's not their focus. It's good,
exactly,
but it's not the focus,
exactly,
right? It's just kind of it's definitely a photographer's camera. It's more about getting the most dynamic range. Like you would want this camera to be it would have a mechanical shutter, it would have high megapixel, and it would be as good of dynamic range as possible.
Yes.
It's basically a Z7 II, but an Expeed 7 version.
Yes. Yeah. I think the time for that has come now, and they can easily do a great job in autofocus with the new processor, the Expeed 7 processor. And I think as Nikon moves to launching the Z9, I think at around the same time, I think they should really consider putting out a Z7 III at around the same time, to be honest. And I mean, it'll be distinctly different, so there's no competition, because I know they won't be able to put out a Z8 along with the Z9. So we ask the Z8 buyers will have to wait about a year, I guess, after the launch of the Z9. But the Z7 III can come out. That's a point.
Yeah, interesting. I never saw a reason for a Z7 III until now. So
I saw the reason last year.
I mean, it's the same thing. People who've said they want a high resolution ZF.
Yeah.
They're right. It's the same idea.
But I think a lot of people started talking about a high resolution ZF when they saw what Leica did with the higher megapixel camera, and they just cropped in because they want to pick a single lens. Because the people who want a higher resolution ZF, they don't want to buy two lenses. They want to buy one lens, maybe a 28 or a 26, and they just want to crop in post. That's what they're looking at. That's the motivation behind asking for a high resolution ZF, and I completely understand that. But for profession photo work, I think there's nothing like resolution, and you also tend to get much richer color output from a higher megapixel sensor. That's a conversation for a different day, but that happens. Interesting things.
All right. Well, I think this has been a good conversation about these things. The Nikon lens lineup is being filled out, and they have a few more things they could do, but they will always have more things to do because lens design keeps advancing. And I'm looking forward to some of the new advancements that they provide to us based on the wonderful Z mount that gives them such a wide range of opportunity to design advanced optics. So that's really great. And I think along with that, we'll see lighter and smaller lenses in the future. I'm sure that will also start to happen without compromise, because I don't think they'll do it until they can do it well, which is great. I like that Nikon usually doesn't do anything till they can do it well.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction between them and some of the other companies that tend to put things out when they're not fully developed. So that's great. And then as far as the banding issue goes, well, we've identified it. It's a specific use case, and maybe a Z7 III can be the solution for that.
At this point, I'd like to tell you that we plan to do this at least twice a month. If you can do it more frequently than that, we'll do that, because we love talking. We just took out an hour from our time. I'm here in India. It's about 10 o'clock, 10 in the night. For Baron, I think it's 10 a.m. or 10:30 in the morning.
It's 11 a.m.
11 in the morning. We just found a little bit of time. We thought, let's talk. And so if you have things you want us to discuss, let us know in the comment section. And Baron, you have a whole lot of insight on, especially on lenses and your experience with lenses over the years, right? And I'm recently dabbling with many different systems, and just finding it a very interesting, rich experience. I know I'm kind of, it's expensive to buy into systems. So I'm not buying a lot of lenses. I'm just getting the cameras that I think make sense. And I try to go beyond the hype and buy into what really makes sense to me as a creator, as a photographer, as a trying to be filmmaker. So I think there's a lot we can share and discuss. So, and especially when you ask questions and you want to know more, that makes us think, that makes us ask questions. And you must have heard that if you want to learn something really well, teach. So in trying to answer your questions, maybe we'll learn through that process as well. So we'd look forward to your questions and comments, and subscribe to the channel. There's a join button. If you want to become a member, do that. So some of these conversations can be especially made for you guys. So yeah, feel free. Baron, last words for this episode, and if you have something on your mind for the next episode, that too, maybe you can just drop a hint.
Well, you caught me on the spot.
Yeah,
I haven't thought too much about that, but I'm sure we'll have many ideas. We always talk about so many different things. I would just say to end this episode that it's nice to be talking to you again, Frames, in this kind of a setting. And I'm looking forward to the future, both for Nikon and for some more rich discussions with you.
Yeah. That's exciting stuff. And what a time to be in the Nikon system. I consider myself lucky because I got in early. I got most of my lenses relatively cheaper, and I foresee that they're going to become a bit more expensive going forward because well, no, Nikon I think feels a lot more confident today. I can tell you that. Like I talked to some people, quite a few people from Nikon, and I feel as if they're a far more confident company than they were like 4 years back, and I can clearly see the shift. And so that tells me two things: they're going to increase prices, and secondly, I think they have a lot more magic to bring to the table. I feel that somehow, I feel that confidence would translate into more real
Well,
work.
this might be a topic for the future, but what I don't think they should do is they should not raise, they should keep the low line cameras very affordable. Because obviously, like the whole idea, I mean, this is going back to the beginning. This is true of the camera business. You want to get someone into your system so that they buy lenses and then they're kind of in your system. If you buy Z lenses, you're definitely in the Nikon system because nobody can adapt a Z lens. We know that.
Yeah.
So you want that Z5 II to be very affordable, and you want to continue to have that level of camera in the future that's very, very good, but very, very affordable, so that the new people are buying it and buying the Z lenses, and then they're staying in the system. So no matter how confident they get, they should still provide that baseline camera at a very affordable price.
Agree. And the Z8 should always be well priced.
Yeah. All right. Well, until the next time.
Until the next time. See you.